Hello, my name is Gideon. Welcome to another Paratus video. Today's one's a bit more educational, less gun and firearm and self-defense related and philosophical about your right to self-defense as my videos usually are, and more focused on the economy. So by now I'm sure almost all of you have noticed that we are in a massive, colossal economic crisis. Not due to COVID, but due to the lockdown policies that took the South African economy, which was already in its longest sustained downturn since the end of World War II, and just curb stomped it. The best analogy I have to illustrate this is that our economy was already in the ICU on life support, and then the South African government came with lockdown and just emptied a belt-fed machine gun straight into it. Didn't even bother unplugging the ventilator. So that's where we are right now. We've got by figures that I've seen published, Mike Schisler's estimates that we're looking at a second quarter GDP contraction of between 45 and 52%, which in layman's terms is apocalyptically bad. It is massive, which is also not a surprise because any person with two brain cells to rub together would have probably figured out by now that if you legislate that the entire country must be confined to their homes and participate in the bare minimum of economic activity and basically zero social activity, that the economy isn't going to function because that's what the economy is. An economy is nothing other than the decisions by ordinary people on what they're going to buy, what they're going to sell, and how they're going to basically lubricate those transactions with money, credit, whatever. So for essentially 3 months, we had massive hard lockdown, and the economy is an organism. It's got various parts and organs that keep it alive, and you can't shut some of those down and restart others and think it's going to function normally. But that's the topic of a whole nother debate. Either way, to make matters worse with our massive GDP contraction, the ANC has been spending on average about 50 billion rand a month more than their tax revenue, than they're getting in tax revenue. So we're sitting here with not so much a passive budget deficit as a very active one, where the ANC the government just keeps spending and spending and spending, but the money that they were supposed to get in the form of tax revenue in order to finance that spending doesn't exist, never happened, and they can't get it. It's gone already, like gone, can't get it, to the extent of 50 billion rand a month. And in spite of this, okay, government hasn't tightened their belts. They haven't become more thrifty. In fact, we have daily reports of ridiculous amounts of government corruption, tender corruption, PPE scandals, you name it. It's out there. They're not letting go of their destructively unrealistic pipe dream and fantasy to somehow resurrect SAA from the ashes that doesn't deserve to be resurrected from. It needs to die, like a whole bunch of other parastatals and SOEs. It needs to die. They can't even pay the Mango pilots their salaries. We're paying a captain on the 737 like 5,000 rand a month and still expect them to go to work. That's actually a real thing. So it's the public sector is a complete disaster. It's a complete fuck up. So now the question is, where on earth are the ANC, or is the ANC government going to get the money to finance their expenditure? Because they're clearly not going to stop looting, and they're clearly not going to stop overspending. They're not going to stop spending money they don't have. So we've seen stuff in the news already that they're coming after pension funds. They're trying to, if you immigrate, they want to lock your pension in the country for 3 years. They want to, through prescribed investment policies, force your pension funds to invest in, state infrastructure projects, which is just basically bullshit terminology to saying they want to steal your money for their vanity projects. Here's the thing. If your pension gets invested in SAA, in Eskom, in Denel, in any parastatal or public project, do you seriously believe that you're going to see any form of competitive return on that investment, and B, see any of your money back ever again? If you answer yes to either of these two questions or both, please let me know what your hard drug schedule is, because you're on impressive hallucinogenics, and I would really like to try some for educational purposes, because boy, that's heavy stuff. So no, you're not going to see your money, and they really are out to get it. So they're after pensions because raising taxes are an issue. South Africa is one of the most heavily taxed countries in the world. I mean, our income tax rates are pretty high. Sure, some people go, oh, but you know, the Scandinavian countries have up to 70% income tax rate. Well, think about it this way. You get taxed on your income. You get taxed on every cent or every rand you spend. 15 cents is taken as VAT. You pay capital gains tax for any investments you might liquidate that you've actually had growth on. Corporations pay tax. Trusts pay tax. There is just taxes upon taxes, and people are paying double taxation. You are taxed for safety and security. You're supposed to have a working criminal justice system. You're supposed to have a working police service. That doesn't exist. So you buy private security and you are taxed on your private security. Public hospitals, public healthcare is a complete fuck up. And I'm sorry, I don't care what anyone has to say about how there are shining examples. No. Public healthcare and state hospitals are a disgraceful fuck up that don't work. Okay, the only reason there's still some semblance of healthcare is because doctors are quite literally killing themselves trying to keep the public healthcare sector together with sticky tape and staples. But for all intents and purposes, no. Public healthcare is a complete fucking disaster. So people who can afford it buy medical aids or finance hospital plans or similar, because good luck being looked after by public healthcare. It doesn't work. So your disposable income is eroded to a very large degree, and a lot of your spending, like medical aids, are at this point still to a degree tax deductible, but how long that's going to last, I don't know. Your insurance costs in this country are massive because, firstly, our road infrastructure and other infrastructure is not maintained the way it should. We have rampant crime and criminality, so your risks to an insurance company are also higher than elsewhere. So you're paying a higher premium than in many other places. These are just some examples. I'm just getting off the top of my head. So not only are you heavily taxed, you're also spending on services that the government is actually taxing you to provide, but that you don't get. No. Regardless of that, okay, government isn't spending less. They're overspending by 50 billion rand a month, and as if the economy is normal enough, it's just going to bounce back again. It's not. Okay, one big canary in the coal mine of how unhealthy our economy is the aviation sector, aviation industry. Aviation industry on domestic passenger flights is operating about 6%, probably a little bit higher now, but it was a month ago operating at 6% of the norm, which is basically fuck all. So the government isn't getting their tax revenue in, and even if they raise taxes, now South Africans are overtaxed to the point, and some people don't believe in the Laffer curve, but I recommend you Google it because I do believe in the Laffer curve. I think it's a wonderful illustration of how it works. Short summary, there's an optimal point of taxation in any economy and in any society, and any tax rate above that optimal one will actually see a decrease in overall tax revenue, not an increase. So the more the ANC tries to tax us, the more that will pervert economic activity and erode disposable incomes to a point where certain economic activities aren't taking place as they should anymore. People are evading and avoiding more tax or spending more time trying to evade or avoid them. And the tax revenue keeps plummeting, the higher the tax rate goes. So the ANC has limited capacity to increase taxes, not unlimited. That's why they want to go after pensions, because there's a whole bunch of pensions that they can loot. When that's done, they're going to have to go after something else, probably after your savings or after your other assets in any way that they can, in order to keep on feeding this hungry furnace, this massive fiscal black hole that is the government that doesn't want to tighten its belt. And a large part of this is the fact that the ANC's disastrous policies, economic policies, has led to millions of people, like 20 million people on grants, which is something they celebrate when in fact it's a crime against humanity, that this number of people are dependent on the state for their survival, because the same government failed to encourage economic growth that gave them meaningful employment opportunities and meaningful educational opportunities for their children. So the ANC can't afford to stop paying grants, because then ultimately people are going to starve and probably come an uprising and overthrow them, because that is quite literally the only way that they can placate their own voting base. How much longer they're going to be able to do that, I don't know. So they need to come after your pensions. They need to come after your savings eventually. in order to keep the wolves from their own door, and as well so that they can loot. Because let's be honest, the ANC loves self-enrichment, they love cater enrichment, they love the patronage that they get from it. And patronage from corporate SA is going to dry the fuck up after this lockdown, I can promise you that. With the amount of disinvestment and capital flight that's happening as a result of this mass awakening that, oh wow, surprise, surprise, the ANC is bad and evil. Capital flight's happening. The ANC doesn't have any money for that they can squeeze out of corporates to the same extent anymore. There's one last card that they can play, and that's inflationary financing. And in essence, that means that they're going to have to turn the printing presses on, print money to finance their spending. Now, what this leads to is a hell of a lot of inflation, which means that they're indirectly robbing you of your purchasing power by putting the printing presses on and printing money. So they're not directly stealing from you by taking out of your bank accounts and taking, you know, a portion of your earnings via personal income tax anymore. They're not just eroding the value of your money by printing more of it. Now, the independence of the Reserve Bank is what's kind of stopping this at the moment, because the South African Reserve Bank has a policy of inflation targeting, which in essence means that they control to a degree the cost of credit to influence the money supply, to keep inflation within a prescribed band that they deem to be healthy to or conducive to a stable economy. The ANC has for a long while been going after the Reserve Bank's independence, because if the South African Reserve Bank is under their direct control, under government control, then they can just print all the money they need without needing to negotiate or try and, you know, be responsible about it. So no matter which way you slice it, your savings are in danger, your pensions are in danger, the value of your currency is in danger, the real purchasing power of your money is in danger. That's why they hate Bitcoin so much, because Bitcoin is really the cheapest and easiest way to hedge against what they're doing. Gold is a lot more expensive, and a lot of people can't afford to buy Krugerrands. And taking your money offshore for a lot of people is also difficult. So my suggestion to you would be is to explore what you can to safeguard what little purchasing power you have left at this stage, and investigate how Bitcoin works, what its pitfalls are. I did a wonderful talk with Ricky Allardyce about this on a podcast a few months ago, which I'll link in the description below, which I hope you find interesting. But ultimately, this entire discussion is to just make you aware of the fact that the ANC is coming after your money, your savings, your pensions. Watch the video I did with Mike Schisler and Magnus Haystack as well. There's quite a lot of discussion points in there. I'd love to have both of them back on a stream at some point. But that's the long and short of this little economic talk. If there's something else you'd like me to discuss about it, please let me know in the comments. Last message, the lockdown has hit animal charities really, really hard. I know not everyone is capable of adopting a shelter animal, because that's obviously first prize, but get in touch with your local animal shelters, animal charities. Find out how you could possibly help, maybe with fundraising, maybe with donations, maybe with getting food. There are a whole whack of ways of things that you can give that is not necessarily money, and the animals that don't have a voice would really appreciate a little bit of love and care from those of us that can give it. I know for a fact shelters are hugely overwhelmed. They've seen a massive decline in donations, and there's been a massive upsurge in abandoned animals, abused animals, and neglected animals that they are trying their best to take care of. That's my positive message. If you like this hoodie, if you like this cap, and if you like this coffee, link in the description below where you can get all three of these things. I really appreciate the support of all of you that have bought swag from us, and I will continue shipping it to you with the same level of reliability. We've shipped about 100 items to several satisfied customers so far. Thank you. You've been awesome. See you all soon. Have a fantastic rest of your day.